Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
What is up? Welcome into the GSMC Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Dougherty. As always, this podcast is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Lots to talk about in the baseball world this week, and coming up, we're going to be talking about the Red Sox and Yankees first game of the season, and then also be talking about the rest of their series, as they're going to have two more games today and tomorrow. They did not start off very well for the Yankees if you just pay attention to the score. I mean, I'll be highlighting that pretty much that whole game and the rest of the series this first segment. Second segment, we're going to be talking about the Cubs and their home opener. It took a couple days to do it. It was supposed to be on Monday, but there was snow all over Wrigley Field, as they had to take the day to clear the snow off, wait for the weather to clear up, and then also that we're going to talk about some other stuff in the second segment, but the fact that we're having some attendance issues due to this weather stuff. I don't know if you saw the pictures of the game down in the south side of Chicago. There was about 1,000 people watching the White Sox have their home opener because they moved the game up in the middle of the day when everybody was at work. So they had to be able to get that game in due to the weather as well, as we're seeing some weather all around, definitely some cold weather all around baseball. I mean, you look at these games that are happening in St. Louis, you see these games happening in Pittsburgh, New York, Washington, D.C., all over the place, where you're seeing these players wear the full head masks, these balaclavas all over the place, long sleeves, big jackets. I mean, you got in Boston yesterday, you got Alex Cora in his first game managing the Red Sox against the Yankees in their storied rivalry, and he's wearing a beanie on top of his baseball cap. So, I mean, definitely some cold weather going around our nation right now, and it is affecting our baseball games, but it's probably going to burn off pretty soon here. We're trying to get as many games as we possibly can going during this cold weather season. I mean, just layer up, and keep those arms warm and those bats hot. So, speaking of hot bats, we're going to be let's talk about the Red Sox and Yankee game yesterday. The Yankees might want to just forget this one, shuffle it away in the old baseball brain there, and just kind of put it behind you, as you're going to obviously have another game today. Yesterday it was Luis Severino and Chris Sale, the top two starters for both teams, and it was lopsided. I mean, you get all excited for this storied rivalry, Red Sox Yankees, and then you get some people like to call it a snooze fest. If you're a Yankee fan, you just turn the TV off probably. when it was 9-1. I mean, you look at the box score, it's actually kind of interesting. Both teams, the Yankees had 10 hits, the Red Sox had 11 hits, but the Red Sox had 14 runs, and the Yankees only had one. I think the only run they had was on an Aaron Judge home run, and then you had the other home run for the Red Sox was a Mookie Betts grand slam that made it 14-1. It was already 10-1, and then Mookie put one over the monster. So if you're a Yankee fan, yeah, you want to definitely put that one behind you, store it away, or just trash it, forget about it, erase it from your memory. If you're a Red Sox fan, you're definitely going to mark your calendar and remember this game as the fact that you started off the season series with the Yankees with a 14-1 win, renewing this rivalry at Fenway Park in the cold weather there, and definitely not a bad way to start off your season series with a rival that is said to be competing for first place this whole season. I mean, I know I kind of did my preseason picks and all those stuff that I did earlier last week, and I had the Yankees just a nose ahead of the Red Sox because their bullpen and because they have these hitters. I mean, it's a long season. We're probably going to see these hitters come around. I mean, Stanton can't. I mean, he struck out, I think, 20 times already this season, or getting close to it. I've always said that it's going to be a home run or a strikeout for Giancarlo. He's kind of big, go big or go home kind of guy. He always has been his whole season. Not really. I mean, last year I think was the only season where he's hit for a decent average, and that's what got him the MVP, other than the home runs. But I think Stanton only had. Well, he went 2 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. So look at that. He got 2 hits, and then there were 2 times he struck out. So didn't really help the Yankees much, anyways. They lost by 13. Chris Sale pitched pretty well in his first start in this Yankee rivalry. He went 6 innings, allowed 8 hits. Only 1 run, though, 8 strikeouts, and the 1 run was on the home run by Aaron Judge. So when you can allow 8 hits and only give up the 1 run, that means you're managing your base runners really well and getting some ground balls. They did turn double play to be able to get him out of that inning. So it's not too shabby there. I mean, if you're looking at the Luis Severino line, you got to be a little wary. He had a nice first couple starts to start off the season. Getting 2 wins, and now he takes his first loss of the season. He went 5 innings, allowed 5 runs on 8 hits, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts. So if you're a Yankees fan, you got to just, like I said, trash this one, put it away, and get back to the next game. Today it's going to be Tanaka against David Price, so definitely a chance for the Yankees to get back in the win column, get the season series even. I mean, you don't want those Red Sox fans having the bragging rights over you for too long. But I mean, they did flash. There was a stat yesterday showing that I think it was like in the last 110 games these two teams have played. I think the Red Sox it's like 54 and 56 or something like that. So they're both teams is pretty even split. They have the exact same amount of extra base hits in that span, and I think their ERAs are very similar as well because they just are very evenly matched teams, and they seem to play down to whatever team is down or what team is up. One team plays up to the level of the up team, or down the other team plays down to the level of the down team. So, but right now they're both in the top of the division, looking like they're going to be. Well, expected them to be in the top of the division. I'm not sure. I don't think the Yankees are in the top of the division right now. Yeah, they're sitting in 3rd place. Toronto has actually had a nice start to the season too. They're 8-4. So, Red Sox only have had 1 loss. This is like the first. I feel like this is the first series really for the Red Sox that's really been quite competitive for them. Well, not so far, but it's prospectively competitive for them. The Yankees, only team that they've really played that's not a Florida team that only has combined probably 4 wins or so. I mean, Tampa Bay has 3 wins and Miami has 3 wins, so 6 wins combined. Red Sox has more than that by themselves. So you got to think about that way that the Red Sox schedule was started the season off. When you take a look at their the standings and look at their win totals and look at their record, just we're about only 11 games, so 10 games in for the Red Sox. So hopefully the weather will stay clear. It's probably going to be another brisk day in Boston for this storied rivalry, the Yankees and the Red Sox. I mean, go further into the Yankees. I mean, when you have Aaron Judge and you have Stanton and you have these big boppers with, Gary Sanchez, you just hope they all can hit together. They've already had their first game with a home run, all of them hitting a home run in one game. But the thing is, it's going to be really up and down, I feel like, all season. If they get the pitching together, it's going to be keyed on the pitching. The hitting will likely come. It'll come throughout the season. Like it's a long season. But the pitching for the Yankees needs to get figured out. Whether they need CC Sabathia to come back from the DL sooner rather than later. I've never really been a big CC lover, CC fan. He's kind of getting at the back end of his career, but he's having kind of a renaissance, had a nice season last year. So if he can help out the Yankees a little bit, they need to get him back. Luis Severino can throw hard, but when you throw hard and they make contact, the ball's going to go far. You can supply the power a lot of the times, and if you're hanging your off-speed pitches, your specialty pitches, they're going to hit hard too. So you got to be able to be wary of that. He gave up. That's the difference. Look at that. Sale and Severino yesterday both gave up 8 hits in this game, but Severino gave up 5 runs. He let some of those hits, and he had 3 walks. Sale had no walks. So that's 11 base runners for Severino, only 8 for Sale. But Sale was able to manage those base runners and did not allow any of them to score. Severino, though, was not doing that. Allowed those base runners to come around. Was not managing, not making his pitches with people on base. The Red Sox were doing pretty well with runners in scoring position. He They obviously, you have to do that when you score 14 runs. But for the Yankees, you definitely got to be wary of that. And Aaron Boone, his first game at Fenway Park as a manager, will likely want to forget that one just along with his fans. And Alex Cora can put a feather in his cap as the first game of the Yankee as the Red Sox manager against the Yankees and getting that win. So those two teams, like I said, the rivalry, that's the one in the AL. You have the Dodgers and Giants in the NL. They just finished their series up over the weekend. They only got to play 2 games. I talked about that on Monday. And then as well as you have this one coming up this week. So we have the preview of their games for tomorrow. And for Friday, you have Tanaka and Price. Looks like David Price is having a pretty nice start to his season. I mean, he got the 1 win, no decision his last time out, but still has not allowed a run with that 0 ERA or allowed an earned run. With that 0 ERA, they're going to be playing at night again in Boston, so it's going to probably be a chilly night. It's going to be a lefty versus righty matchup. I mean, it's going to be Tanaka. If Tanaka can locate, he can just. The only problem with Tanaka is if he can stay around the knees, get ahead in the count early. And so what he's got to do, stay around the knees with the fastball, get ahead in the count early, use that off-speed pitches because he's got those specialty pitches that just really can be nasty. And that's how when he is successful, he gets in the count early and makes people chase out of the zone, whether it's with that two-seam fastball that runs away from the righty or lefties into the righties or that slider that can kind of dive down away from the righties. So, I mean, that's what he throws as his payoff pitches. But if he gets up in the zone, he gets he can become susceptible to the home run where he can get that fastball up in the zone or hangs a slider or if he gets down in the count and gets predictable. Because that's when you're a pitcher. One thing when you're a pitcher, if you don't have overpowering stuff and you don't get first pitch strikes or even at least second pitch strikes and get ahead in the count, get in your pitcher's counts, which is like 0-2, 1-2 counts, you can become predictable in these hitters, especially the Red Sox hitters who are very good. Obviously, they're missing Xander Bogaerts, but you still got Mookie Betts, you still got Devers, you still got Brock Hull, who's a nice little player. You got JD Martinez coming over from the Diamondbacks. He's had a nice game yesterday for the Red Sox. So you definitely have to be careful with Hanley batting in that middle of that order as well with JD. You got to be careful because those guys can hit mistake pitches. They're mistake hitters, and they want to be able to guess when they get ahead in the count. And if you're Tanaka, you definitely need to watch that. Keep that ball down, keep that pitch count down, and be able to pitch efficiently because that's how he is successful. And in getting those ground balls as well. The Yankees defense, we'll see how that continues to transpire. They got DD over at shortstop. He's definitely been that guy that they've been able to find now at shortstop. And kind of been finally the stalwart there that they've been missing since Derek Jeter left them. But if you're Tanaka, you're coming off this, your team's coming off this bad loss to a rival like that. You better have your stuff. You don't want to lose twice in a row. And he is susceptible to getting knocked around a little bit. So he's got to make sure he keeps those pitches down in the zone because he's not quite the overpowering stuff where he can pitch that as much up in the zone compared to David Price, where he just needs to throw strikes. He just needs to throw strikes, locate, stay on the corners, but he's got some good movement coming from the left-hand position. But he's got to watch out because the Yankees, all their power, except for Didi, Didi does bat left-handed, but everybody else like Judge and Stan and Sanchez, they all bat right-handed. So he's got to make sure he doesn't leave any lazy pitches over the plate or that they're going to play Pepper with that big monster out in left field. So, or maybe we'll see Stan hit one over. That's actually what I kind of want to see. We'll see what I want to see is Giancarlo Stanton hit one out of the Massachusetts Turnpike. I wouldn't call myself a Yankee fan of any sorts, but I mean, you got to like long home runs. I mean, you saw Mookie Betts hit an absolute rocket. I mean, that ball, if it didn't hit the back railing on the monster, it would have gone way, way out of that ballpark. But it was just a liner that skimmed the top of the people's heads in the monster seats out there in left field. What do you like? Those monster seats, they've been out there for a while. I remember that way back when they had it, just a net out there. Now it's those nice, I mean, what an idea there. I know it's been a long time. They've had those monster seats out there a long time. I feel like they keep revamping those and making them even better of an experience out there. Definitely a bucket list thing for a lot of people, especially me, to be able to get up there and sit in the monster seats or at least go to Fenway Park in general. Definitely a place to go watch baseball for sure on the list. But for Wednesday, that's going to be Price and Tanaka. Then the series will wrap up on Thursday with Rick Porcello going up against Sonny Gray. Another thing with Sonny Gray is that he is like Tanaka. If he gets going early, gets in a rhythm early, these pitchers can be susceptible in the first couple innings. So you got to be able to get them early, and then if they settle in, they get their fastball in the groove where they want to be able to locate it early in the count, and then they're going to come with off speed if they can locate. Especially with Gray, he's got the nasty curveball. I mean, his curve, I've never seen so much. I mean, I've been watching him for a long time, especially with the A's. He's got some nasty stuff. He's got a dirty curveball that just drops right off the table, and you got to be careful, especially, and then also that changeup coming with that same arm action as the fastball. It looks just like the fastball coming out of his hand, but it's about 5 or 6 or 7 miles an hour slower, depending on the pitch. So if you're the Red Sox, definitely be wary of that. Work the count with Tanaka, work the count with Gray. These next 2 games, if you're the Yankees, Rick Porcello, he looks like he's having a pretty good start to his season, coming to bounce back. He's 2-0. But this is probably going to be the toughest lineup he's going to be faced. He has faced all year, surely, after his first 2 starts were against the Rays and the Marlins, I believe. So this is going to be a good little rest of the series after we did not get the kind of game we wanted in the first game with the Red Sox blowing out the Yankees 14-1. We'll hopefully get something where a little more competitive in these next 2 games with some two good pitching matchups we have. Again, letting you guys know it's Price and Tanaka tonight in Fenway, and then tomorrow it'll be Sonny Gray and Rick Porcello for the Red Sox. So that'll wrap it up for this first segment. We kind of just went over the Red Sox and Yankees in their first series here in the 2018 season, the renewal of the rivalry. And in the next segment, we're going to be going over the Cubs and their chances to maybe get back into the playoffs and maybe contending for a World Series, and then also going over their first game at Wrigley this season. They had a 10-game road trip, I think, to start off the season. I think maybe the schedulers were trying to just in case there was some inclement weather in Chicago to start off the season, they were going to push back that opening day. They did it. Obviously, the schedules come out way ahead of time, but they were right. There's definitely some weather in Chicago going on. They had to push back the opening day game to yesterday instead of Monday, and they had to clear all that snow off the field. I don't know if people go look at the pictures of Wrigley Field on Monday. It was basically a blank. There's a nice little blanket of snow sitting all over on top of the field. So kudos to those groundskeepers that got that field ready for yesterday's game. It still was brisk out there, but it looks pretty normal out there at the friendly confines in North Chicago. All right, I'll be right back, and we'll talk about that.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast. In that first segment, we did go over the Red Sox and Yankees rivalry and a lot about their first game. They played yesterday, and the next 2 games they'll be playing today and tomorrow over in Boston at Fenway Park. Now we're going to shift over to the National League. The Cubs had their first game at Wrigley Field yesterday after a long road trip to start off the season, trying to beat that weather off, but they couldn't wait long enough. They had to get back to Wrigley. They had to get back to the north side of Chicago, and the weather was not telling them they were not welcome yet on Monday, as they were not able to play on their scheduled home opener. Against the Pirates, they had to clear some snow off the field. They got the game in yesterday, though. On Tuesday, they got the game in against the Pirates, and it did not go well. The Pirates ruined their little party there down in Chicago at Wrigley, and they beat them 8-5. The Cubs started Tyler Chatwood. He came over from the Rockies, assigning to kind of shore up their rotation after losing Jake Arrieta. So the Cubs, that's going to be the question mark for the Cubs, I think. Is this rotation destined for playoff glory again? Because I mean, I know it's a long season. I've been saying it all week long, last weekend, this week. Long season. We're just starting off here. We're about, 10, 11 games in for some teams, depending on how many rainouts or weather delays they've had to have or postponements. But the Cubs, I don't know. John Lester, Tyler Chatwood, Kyle Hendricks. Maybe they're going to have to make a trade coming up here in the summertime. Get somebody else because their lineup is destined for is set up for some serious postseason run. I know it is, barring any injuries, of course. But no, they got Ian Happ now is going to be pretty much their everyday center fielder. Leading off, Dexter Fowler's gone. He's over in St. Louis now. And then they have Jason Hayward and right, and then in left, Kyle Schwarber, the slimmed down Kyle Schwarber playing left field. So I mean, they're pretty much set in the outfield. Their infield has been set. I mean, they have their 3 guys in the infield. I mean, their second and Zobrist will play second base if Baez is playing short. If they have Russell out, I mean, kind of I think it's a rotation right now between Russell and Ben Zobrist, whoever isn't playing. So usually it's going to be Rizzo at first, Baez at second, Russell at short, and Bryant at third. I mean, look at that. That's pretty nice right there. Obviously, many of those guys were acquired via trade, or some of those guys are homegrown with Bryant and Baez. Addison Russell was given to them by the A's in the Jeff Samardzija trade, no longer with the A's. And then, of course, Rizzo was brought over from the Red Sox after starting with the Padres. He's bounced around a little bit, but now finally found a home in Chicago, got a ring with Chicago, and has had a nice little career with the Cubs, looking like he's going to be he's a perennial all-star, looking like he's going to have another good season over there in the north side of Chicago. But the Cubs getting their home opener ruined by the Pirates, and the Pirates, I'll talk about them for a little bit here now. The Pirates, where my Pirates fans, they shouldn't be as mad as they were over the offseason, giving away, oh my gosh, they gave away Andrew McCutchen. What's going on? It's our team. It's falling apart. They gave away Garrett Cole. What's going on? Well, your team is going to be getting into the 21st century, and it's going to be going with the young guys. It's going to be going with the analytics, and you obviously have a good manager who can definitely fill in a lineup card, make the good pitching decisions that you have to make as in the National League. And Clint Hurdle, definitely I would call him an old school manager. He's been around for a while. Watched him a lot, coached him with the Rockies in the National League West, but now over in Pittsburgh, where he's been I feel like he's been there for a few years. I mean, a long while now, at least 6 years now, in Pittsburgh. But the Pirates, they're starting off their season pretty well. I mean, they got another win. They're 8-2 now. They're hitting big home runs for Francisco Cervelli, not hitting a big home run late in the game to pretty much break that one open for the Pirates, and they're pitching pretty well. You had Jamison Tyone last week pitch a one-hit shutout. I mean, NL Player of the Week honors due to that performance, and you gotta like that if you're a Pirates fan. You gotta like your young players coming together with your more veteran players like Cervelli, and then the grab of Corey Dickerson coming over from Tampa Bay after he was cut by the Rays for some reason. I mean, look at that, Corey Dickerson. He's already hitting .342. He had 3 more hits yesterday with 2 RBIs, 2 runs scored. So sitting right there in the 4-hole or the 5-hole in that Pirates lineup. So I mean, if you're coming in and going against the Pirates and they're playing hot, you got to look at that lineup. You got Josh Harrison at second, leading off Gregory Polanco, Starling Marte, Josh Bell, Dickerson, Cervelli, and I mean that's not a bad little lineup right there. I don't know how they're going to fare in the NL Central. You got some other teams that are looking like they're going to be competing, especially Milwaukee. I don't know how the Cardinals are going to be looking. They're always been there in that Central Division. We'll see how Mike Matheny's job is doing coming up. We have had already kind of an early manager odds of managers getting fired halfway through the season. We'll probably talk about that. We'll be talking about that in our next segment of the different odds of managers being fired. I'll probably go through a lot of those. The fact that we have Mike Matheny is actually up there in that list, a little teaser for that next segment. But yeah, the Pirates looking pretty good. Cubs need to get that rotation figured out, I think, a little more. You got obviously Darvish coming over. They gave that contract to Darvish after a long, I don't know what took him so long. I'm just trying to figure out different parts of the how much they're going to pay him, or maybe how they were going to structure the deal regarding deferments of a payment, maybe later in the contract or what have you. But yeah, definitely interesting, a little rotation that Theo Epstein has figured out in Chicago with building it around John Lester. You have Kyle Hendricks coming off of a little bit of a down year. Had a really nice season the year before though, so hopefully he can try and grab some of that and get back in that realm of pitching. There, pitching is kind of weird. You can just get in. It's kind of like I've gone over the difference between pitching and hitting when we talked about Ohtani. Hitting a lot more rhythm based. You're doing it every day. You go in slumps, you get hot. You go in slumps, you get hot. Pitching is just can get in your head. You can go in a slump for a whole season because you only pitch every fifth day, and you can kind of snowball starts, and you can just be like, oh, here we go again. Oh, here we go again. You're looking for that start that's going to get you out of that pitching, that slump of either not locating your pitches correctly and getting hit around the park, or whether you're having a bit of wildness, not being able to throw strikes and walking a bunch of people. So I don't think that's Kyle Hendricks' problem. He's a sinker baller, and when you're a sinker baller, that pitch when it just gets on a different plane, when it gets a little bit higher in the zone, it becomes really hittable, and it just will drop right on those hitters' bats and get hit pretty far, because that's what you don't want. You want them to be able to top the ball, have it drop right at their knees when you get that sinking action of that sinker, and then they'll hit all ground balls for that sinker baller. But if you get that pitcher up, I mean, that's what the thing about a sinker baller, you want to just make him get up in the zone, make him pitch up in the zone, be more selective, and if you can do that to Kyle Hendricks, he's beatable. So, and then John Lester's got to be able to hold people on at first base. First of all, we finally saw John Lester, I think, pick somebody off. Last year, I think, for the first time I've ever seen. He does not like throwing to first base. But John Lester, if you get him, you got to make him throw strikes, obviously. He's going to be a guy who's going to be kind of effectively wild, where he's got that kind of lazy left-handed delivery where he snaps that. It's kind of a deceptive delivery where he's pretty slow and it comes across his body a little bit with that left-handed delivery. And you got to make him throw strikes, and if he gets wild, that's where you can kind of beat him. Let him. When people get on base, he gets too fine and tries to locate pitches, and then you'll get pitches over the zone to hit when there's people on base. He doesn't really hold runners on very well, like I said, and he can get kind of rattled when there's people on base. So, and we haven't seen kind of Yu Darvish. That guy's kind of had an up and down career. He's had an up and down season already with the Cubs. And then bringing over Tyler Chatwood. I like Tyler Chatwood. He's a good little player. Not the biggest guy on the round, but he can get it up there. He throws nice mid-90s. Yesterday, though, he did not go too well for him. He's already had 2 losses on the season for the Cubs. Only went 5 innings, allowed 5 runs on 9 hits, 1 walk. Did have 7 strikeouts though, but not what you would want. He gave up a home run to Starling Marte in the 4th inning. So I mean, he's going to have to bounce back from that in his next start, but definitely for the Cubs, you don't like losing to the Pirates when you're the team that's supposed to be in the favorite for winning that division. I guess the team who is supposed to be probably in the cellar for that division, or other than the Reds. But the Pirates still definitely up looking good. They're sitting on top right now. I mean, about 10 games in for them, so they're sitting on top of that NL Central division. For the Cubs, you can't like that, and especially for the Cardinals, and you're going to be having to figure that out and maybe get some juice in that bat, get some better pitching out there. Because I mean, 5 runs for the Cubs used to be just perfect. Those pitchers were able to keep those. I mean, 4 runs or less usually for those for your pitching staff. If you score more than 4 runs, you're in good shape. So it's just going to be a little bit of a interesting thing to watch for this Cubs rotation. I kind of went over some of their different pitchers they got running out there for this season. That was the one unsure thing I was thinking about this season for Chicago is their rotation. Obviously, they did not want to have to give Arrieta the money he wanted. They gave it to Yu Darvish because they thought Arrieta was regressing a little bit. Now he's in Philadelphia. Arrieta is, and Darvish is now coming over from the Dodgers to play in the Cubs in the north side, for the Cubs in the north side, and he's going to be pitching, I think, either tomorrow or today. Yu Darvish. So this series is going to continue if they can get this game in. I think the weather will hold off in Chicago for these games. I think they're going to have to play another game. Yeah, it's going to be John Lester today for the Cubs against a guy who's actually had a nice little start for the Pirates, and his name is Steven Brault. If you haven't noticed, he's a lefty, so it's going to be lefty versus lefty action, but he's 2-0 with a 1.13 ERA and 8 innings pitched with 7 strikeouts. So, I mean, he did pitch against the Tigers and the Reds lineup. So, I mean, he's going to have to face a little tougher lineup this time. He did get a win in relief, actually, looks like in the Tigers game, and then he went 5 innings, allowed 3 hits, 4 walks, 4 strikeouts, and allowed a run, but got a win against the Reds in his last start. So he's going to get the ball today against John Lester. See how that goes, and if the Cubs can get after this young lefty with their vaunted lineup, and then give some runs to John Lester, because he's actually had a pretty nice start to the season. He's got a win with the sub-3 ERA. His last 2 starts, first start of the year, didn't pitch that well. Got a no decision. That was the opening day, obviously, in Miami. Only went 3 1/3 innings, gave up 3 runs on 7 hits. But his last start, much better, went 6 innings against Milwaukee. In Milwaukee, got the win. Didn't give up a run, walked 1, struck out 6, only 3 hits allowed through 6 innings for John Lester. So he'll be coming back now, pitching at home for the first time in the cold weather in Chicago. So we'll see how he fares there. 2 lefties going out in the Cubs, in the friendly confines for the Cubs and the Pirates. All right, so it's going to wrap it up for this segment. We talked about the Cubs a lot and talked about how they've fared this start off the season. Let's see if they can bounce back. They're only 5-5. They're going against a team in the Pirates who was, you could think about maybe flipping those records to start off the season, with the Cubs only 5-5 and the Pirates looking really good at 8-2, their best start in seemingly decades. So in the next segment, we're going to talk about. I kind of mentioned it earlier, a little bit of foreshadowing. We're going to talk about some managers and what teams are already kind of putting their manager on the hot seat and looking at some odds of firings in the first that will happen before the season ends. So, and then last segment, as always, we're going to go over the games for today and tomorrow and some pitching matchups that I like and some of the different matchups we like around whether it's pitching or just like teams, doesn't matter, around the league, around Major League Baseball. So we'll do that when we get back and talk about some managers and then some teams. I'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast. We have gone over the Cubs, we've gone over the Yankees and Red Sox. Now we're going to go over some more teams in the NL Central and more specifically their manager. And one of them is Mike Matheny, the manager for your St. Louis Cardinals. And likely, I'm talking about the managers as I talked about, we'll tease a little bit in the previous segment. We're just going to talk about the managers who are most likely to be fired during the season, or to be the first one to be fired during the middle of the season coming up here. I don't think anybody's going to be fired anytime soon, but it's just still interesting to talk about. Of course, these Bovada comes out with the lines and the odds for these managers getting taken out of their positions. Right now, Buck Showalter, the manager for the Orioles, is first in the clubhouse. Hasn't been able to get that team on the winning track figured out. Obviously, sitting in that very tough AL East right now, not thought as a contender really. They're 4-8 looking like right now. I mean, have been able to get Chris Davis going. Manny Machado is going to be leaving after this season, so he's going to just playing for a contract for next season with a different team though. So Buck Showalter at 3-2 odds to get fired first. Then you're looking at Bob Melvin, the A's manager. Tough for Bob Melvin. I mean, being out in Oakland, you got a owner who's actually pretty rich. If you didn't know that, the A's owner is actually really, really well off. He's a billionaire actually, but he doesn't spend very much money on his team. To be obviously clear, and then he's playing that pretty dingy stadium down in Oakland Alameda Coliseum. As you can see already, the Raiders, the football team, is going to be saying bye-bye to that one pretty soon, going to Vegas. But the A's they can't seem to figure it out. They keep getting these roadblocks when it comes to building a new stadium, and I don't know why they don't just build a new one right there in Oakland, right at the same. Just tear it down, build a new one right in the same site. You already got Bart right there. You're not going to have a need for a football. You don't have a football team anymore, obviously. The Warriors are going to be jumping over the pond, over the lake or bay. It's not a lake; it's a bay. To San Francisco to be playing at their new home at the Chase Center in a couple years now. So Oracle won't be needed. You can tear down that entire complex and build a brand new, beautiful stadium right in the middle there, and try and build up that part of Oakland, Alameda part, southern Oakland there, to make it your own kind of ballpark, and your own little baseball village down there. But it seems like the Oakland politicians don't really want to do that. So Bob Melvin kind of just stuck there in Oakland with that team that obviously low payroll. You're trying to build up your farm system. They got some good little players. We'll see how long Matt Chapman lasts in an A's uniform before he will be shipped out somewhere else. I was kind of like Josh Donaldson 2.0 right there. Even plays the same position as him. And the same thing with Olsen. They got the kid Olsen they got over there too. But that's Bob Melvin. Brian Price, the Reds manager, I think he should be higher than that. It's 3-1 right now. Reds, they're pretty much in the cellar dwellers of the NL Central. Only 2 wins on the season, and I don't really see it getting much better. The Reds haven't really gotten their ship righted. They came out of spring training a little flat. They have Joey Votto just sitting there. I think Joey Votto, talk about trade players not lasted long on a team. I think Joey Votto could be some trade bait for any team looking for some power coming in the middle of their lineup, looking for maybe like if there's an injury coming up or coming down the road, and they need a first baseman or even a DH for a team in the American League. I think Joey Votto would be a player that you could see the Reds be looking to unload for some picks, because or not picks, but for some prospects. That's how it works in baseball. You don't get draft picks really; you get prospects, and there are some good ones out there, and the Reds could use them because their future is looking pretty dismal as it is anyways. After that, I believe, I don't know why Mike Scioscia's on this list, but we're going to go Mike Matheny. That's what I was going to get to. I said NL Central team. I was talking about the Cardinals and Mike Matheny, and the fact that Mike Matheny, he's been a great manager. He's gotten the Cardinals into the playoffs multiple seasons. Hasn't quite gotten to the run obviously the runs that you've seen Tony La Russa do with the World Series championships in St. Louis. But when you're in St. Louis, those fans expect a lot. They've been given a lot already with the World Series championships in 06 and then in 11 again with La Russa. But now Mike Matheny at the helm. I think he's been there since 2012. So this is his 7th or 8th season at the helm for the Redbirds there in St. Louis, and now the Cubs are the team to beat. The St. Louis Cardinals and the Cardinals fans and the Cardinals front office don't really take kindly to that, as they've always had that rivalry with the Cubs, and now the Cubs being that team to beat, that number 1 team in the Central. You might be getting some new scenery and some new leadership in St. Louis, because the Cardinals, they haven't been able to really battle the Cubs much at all these last few years. The Cubs kind of beat him to the dust in 2016, especially on their run to the World Series. And then last year, the Cardinals didn't even make the playoffs. So whether Mike Matheny, we'll see if Mike Matheny's days are numbered, because now even the Brewers have made the moves in the offseason. I mean, that's not really Mike Matheny's fault, but the Brewers have made the moves in the offseason to get to a position where they can leapfrog the Cubs or the Cardinals as that second team in the NL Central to watch and be battling the Cubs. I mean, we saw actually right now going on is the Cubs, the Brewers are playing the Cardinals. Cardinals did get a walk-off home run yesterday from, I believe it was Matt Carpenter who actually hit a home run. Yeah, Matt Carpenter walked him off to beat the Brewers, but it's going to be a tough sledding for the Cardinals as they're going to have to play the Brewers and the Cubs 19 times each, and then I think that's really what's going to define their season, because I think the Pirates are going to come back down to earth. That's just how their roster's kind of been laid out, and we'll see if it can stand the test of time. But definitely with the Cardinals, they have to be able to battle with these Cubs and battle with these with the Brewers, because the Brewers have been able to figure it out. They have their lineup. They got a great bullpen. They have just enough starting pitching to get by in that Central Division. I mean, when you're playing in that kind of ballpark that they do, it's tough to have super lights out pitching because of the fact that balls fly out of there. So you're going to be relying on your big bats. You saw Eric Thames actually hit a big home run yesterday in the loss, but definitely a thing to watch if you're a Cardinals fan. And Mike Matheny likely is seemingly on the hot seat. Down in Miami, you got Don Mattingly. He's definitely on the hot seat there. I mean, you gotta watch. If you're Don Mattingly, maybe you want to put yourself on that hot seat, because he's having some issues with the roster talent down there in Miami. Derek Jeter didn't really do him any favors. Both ex-Yankees didn't really help out his fellow Yankee there. Now Jeter taking over for the Marlins, but we'll see if he wants to either just keep him around for looks and Mattingly being a good head of that team, whether it's bad or good there down in the South Beach. But I don't even know who'd want to take that job. If you're a manager out there, who would you want to just do, or a coach out there, prospective manager? Would you just stick in your position that you're in now, or would you want to go manage the Marlins right now? I mean, look what the Pirates are doing. The Pirates were the team that also kind of did that fire sale in the offseason, but they have the young talent like Marte and Polanco and Jameson Taillon on the mound, and even Josh Bell, to get some wins and to win a bunch of games in a row, or in a five. I mean, they won 8 out of 10 to start off the season, and I feel like the Marlins have done the reverse of that. They've won 3 games out of 11, so they've a 3-8, kind of a reverse of the Pirates. So they're kind of they got back lumped together this offseason when it comes to teams that kind of did that fire sale, but the Marlins have not been able to get the magic the Pirates out, just because they don't have the roster talent. They basically have Justin Bour, and that's about it regarding like big talent, big names that I can even name off the top of my head. I have to go look at the box score for the Marlins right now to go find out who they're running out there. I mean, I know they still have their they still have Justin Bour at first base. They still got Derek Dietrich. He's playing outfield now. They got Miguel Rojas playing shortstop. Starlin Castro's actually over at second base now, and that's about it. Everybody else is kind of like, who is that person? And they did not fare well yesterday, as the Mets actually were able. They've had to face Jake DeGrom yesterday. Actually, they faced Jacob DeGrom yesterday in that game, and I mean, you got to give a little bit of credit to the Marlins. They touched him up a little bit. He only went 6 innings, allowed 4 runs on 7 hits, 6 strikeouts to give up a home run to Justin Bour, who actually hit 2 home runs. Look at that, Justin Bour, 2 home runs. But of course, the Marlins, being the Marlins, blew that lead, and the Mets came back to win that game with 2 in the 8th and 2 in the 9th, and the Marlins will be making club history, as they have not been able to draw out that many fans. I think there was only, 7,000 fans at that game yesterday in Marlins Park. I mean, I'm reading that they're saying that they saw all these reports saying they're making history, and it's not the way that you really want to make history, because they're not very watchable. The Marlins are. So if you're Don Mattingly, maybe you are bringing on those rumors and those odds of being fired, because you don't really want to be sitting in that dugout anymore. I mean, you're probably getting paid pretty well if you're Don Mattingly, but Yeah, I just don't really feel like that's a job that anybody would really want right now. Continuing down the list, we're looking at Gabe Kapler is already on the list. He's managed all of 11 games in Philadelphia, and the Phillies actually they're going to be, that NL East is getting more and more interesting as we go along. Obviously, I was talking about how earlier the Nationals should be running away with this. Last week we talked about it. I talked about it with Jesse on the sports podcast when we were giving our preview of the season. The Nationals should run away with it, but now we're, a week and a half in, we're 11 games in to this season, and the Nationals are definitely going to have to thwart off the Mets. They got swept at home by New York. Harper even hit 2 home runs, and the Mets still won all 3 games. Mets are sitting at 9-1. Washington's actually tied for a second right now with Atlanta, and the Phillies are right behind them at 5-5. So Gabe Kapler, I think that he's all right. The Phillies got some nice pieces there on their team. Obviously, bringing in Jake Arrieta to shore up that rotation, but I like their lineup a lot. They got Rhys Hoskins. He had a great season last year, end of the year. Lots of home runs for him, and playing in that ballpark, definitely a home run happy ballpark over there at Citizens Bank Park. But no, the Phillies. I think Gabe Kapler's all right because, yeah, he had that issue with the whole pitching change thing, and he got booed already within 2 games of being a manager in Philadelphia. But that's just Philly fans, I think. They're playing the Reds right now, so the Reds are pretty much going to roll over. And they got Aaron Nola, who pitched got his first win, pitched another gem for the Phillies against Homer Bailey. Homer Bailey actually didn't look bad either. He gave up only 1 run on 2 hits, 7 strikeouts in 6 innings, but the bullpen did not help him out there as they gave up a combined 5 more runs. So the Phillies were able to run away with that one. Nola went 8 innings. Look at that, 8 innings, 1 run, 3 hits, 3 walks, and 6 strikeouts. That's a good start right there for the young pitcher there for the Phillies. He's looking like he's going to be that number 1 man in the rotation to get that opening day start, and they have the veteran and Jake Arrieta right behind him to shore up that Phillies rotation. You got to like that. The Phillies lineup isn't looking bad either. They bought over Carlos Santana from the Indians. They have, Herrera, Hoskins, Williams, even got a big home run from their speedy second baseman Kingery. Alfaro hit a laser home run when they beat they scored 20 runs in a game. This lineup can put up some runs. So it was against the Marlins, but we'll see how the Phillies do against some more tougher opposition. They played the Marlins and the Reds so far. So Gabe Kapler, I think your job is safe, buddy. The other name I'm seeing on here for some reason, because his team is actually in first place, well, maybe not in first place, but close to it because the Astros are so good. But is Mike Scioscia at 10-1 odds. I don't know why, but yeah, they're tied at 9-3. Both LA and Houston are 9-3. He's managing Shohei Ohtani. He's got Mike Trout, who's playing well already. He's got a few and hitting some long home runs. Yesterday, Mike Trout hit an absolute missile out of the park in Arlington. And then he's got Ohtani, who looks like he's going to pitch pretty much every Sunday. So we'll be talking about his next start on Friday's show. Of course, we got to do our Ohtani updates because he is the story of baseball now, the AL Player of the Week for Major League Baseball. So he's the guy. He's got more home runs than the Detroit Tigers, and he's only had 19 at bats. So that's a lot to talk about. All right, so we're going to wrap up this segment. We talked about all those managers. We're going to come back next segment with a little preview of the games coming up today and tomorrow, and then probably continue on talking about, maybe if we have some time, talk more about the Red Sox and Yankees, as we did already kind of preview their series. But there's a lot of games going on right now. Cardinals are playing the Brewers, like I said earlier. Cubs are having their first series at Wrigley. We'll see if they bounce back after a loss yesterday in their home opener, and we'll be right back talking about all of that.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast. It's our final segment of the day. We have talked a lot about things going on around baseball. Now we're going to talk about some of the matchups coming up for today and tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday, around the league. To start off in Cleveland, we're talking about the Cleveland Indians, who I think are still going to run away with that AL Central. Haven't had the hottest start of the year, only 6-5, but their pitching is going to come around. But they're facing off against the Tigers, hosting Detroit today at Progressive Field. Is going to be a nice little matchup of guys who, I mean, you got Jordan Zimmerman, who came over for the Tigers, who came over from the Nationals, signed that big contract with Detroit, hasn't really lived up to it too much. His first two starts were not great, as he's sitting at an 8.71 ERA right now, but I think he's going to be all right. Maybe not this start. He wasn't great against Cleveland last year. Didn't win a game against them. Was 0-3 with an ERA over 9 last year against the Indians, who definitely can hit the ball around the park. But he'll look to try and lower that ERA, get his team in position for a win. I don't know, because the Tigers, they haven't been able to do pretty much anything right when it comes to this season, and they're 4-6 though. Carlos Carrasco, who I like. I think he's a great pitcher. He really shores up that Indians rotation. Obviously, you got Corey Kluber, the reigning AL Cy Young Award winner. But Carlos Carrasco is a good little pitcher. I mean, he's sitting at a 5.4 ERA, but 2 wins, and he was able to get through their home opener last Friday, only allowing 2 runs on 5 hits in 6 innings. So he's going to be just fine. I mean, he played the Royals. There was a stretch where they only were 1 for 20 against him, and he's going to be going against this Tigers lineup that it doesn't really have much to show for it, other than Miguel Cabrera, who had a real down year last year. Looks like he's kind of regressing as he comes down the back end of his backstretch of his career in Detroit. But it's just to show, if you're down over in the central area and you can get this game, definitely a game to watch if you're one of the fans of those teams. That's a nice little tasty little pitching matchup you got going today. Other stuff around the league. We're going to have a debut, as the Giants are going to be facing the Diamondbacks. We're going to have Andrew Suarez making his Major League debut. Giants you don't see that very often. They had a guy, Tyler Beatty, yesterday make his Major League debut. We're going to have another Major League debut for the Giants. That's just how many injuries they've gone through. Giants were able to get a win in that debut. For Beatty, he didn't earn the win. He only went 4 innings. He got no decision. But the Giants were able to walk off in the bottom of the 9th inning yesterday against the Diamondbacks. Andrew McCutchen getting his second walk-off in about 4 days for the Giants. And they're going to be looking to bounce back, take the momentum of that one in the day game. Today it's going to be Robbie Ray against Andrew Suarez. So Robbie Ray looking really good. He's already 2-0. It's going to be the battle of lefties in this game. The Diamondbacks, though, second game in a row facing a guy you've obviously never faced before, because he's never pitched in the major leagues. Maybe you faced him in a minor league game or in a spring training game, what have you. But no major league innings yet for Suarez. He's making his major league debut. So he's going to be looking like he's going to be doing just fine. I mean, we'll see. The problem with Beatty yesterday was he couldn't throw strikes, and when he needed to, he's getting a little wild. Had 5 walks through 4 innings. So let's see if Suarez can just find the zone. You got to be able to pound the zone against this Arizona team, or they'll kill you if you walk them too much, and they'll be able to knock in those guys with those big batters in the middle of the lineup. Because you got Goldschmidt, and the thing about Goldschmidt is no matter what kind of slump he's in, like he has been in to start off the season, when he gets to AT&T Park, he seems to just turn it on. He's already got a triple and a home run in 2 games against the Giants. So we'll see how that goes this afternoon over in San Francisco. Other games around the league, as I'm looking at my big board here of good pitching matchups, we got Jaime Garcia going against Zach Wheeler in Miami against the Mets. I mean, the Mets looking like they're just the team right now. I mean, it's just, or make that Yarling Garcia. I see a Jay Garcia, I think it's Jaime, but he's on the Marlins. Yarling Garcia for the Marlins. He actually had a nice little outing. He's allowed 2 runs in 10 innings of relief. He's going to be thrown into the rotation, automatically making the choice to get him in the rotation. As the lefty will be going off against a the Mets vaunted lineup now. I mean, the Mets lineup, they're 9-1. They're one of the best teams in baseball right now, only losing that one game to start off the season. But no, Mets lineup looking pretty good. They got Zach Wheeler going. He making his first start of the year as he's going to be recalled from AAA Las Vegas, and you're going to be making a spot start for Jason Vargas, who is rehabbing from a surgery he had to have on his hand. Definitely a late. I mean, Zach Wheeler coming over. He's been in the Metro farm system in their system for a while. Coming over, if you guys don't remember, he came over to the Mets from the Giants in that Carlos Beltran trade way back when, and he started last year a while for the Mets, but he was a late cut in the spring and started the season off in AAA, but now he'll be coming up to the big club and facing off against the Marlins in Miami. So be one to watch there as Zach Wheeler makes his first start of the season. We talked a lot about Masahiro with the Yankees and the Red Sox. Again, just a reminder, we're going to have Masahiro Tanaka and David Price going today for those two teams as they continue their series in Boston, the rivalry going on. Let's go over to Thursday. That's pretty much it. I mean, that's pretty much it for today. Nothing really big because we're getting through these rotations are all kind of jumbled up as we go over to Thursday and look and see if anybody. Thursday we're only going to have about 8 games going, and not everybody has really announced their starters. You got Giolito against Berrios for the White Sox and the Minnesota Twins. I like Berrios. He's he's going to be a good pitcher for the Twins. He's 1-1 to start off the season, but definitely going to be a guy to watch for if you're a Twins fan and looking to see if that team can make a run, at least for the wild card maybe, or if these Indians still have their woes and can't quite get a run on the AL Central and take off with that division. The Mets or the Minnesota Twins should be able to give them some fits and maybe keep that division race tight throughout the whole season. Like I said before, earlier in the episode, we did talk about Sonny Gray against Rick Porcello. That's going to be going on Thursday, and then the Cubs and Pirates are actually going to play another game on Thursday with Kyle Hendricks going against Williams for the Pirates. Trevor Williams looking good in his first 2 starts, and he definitely 2 different wins, different ways. I mean, he's got a sub-2 ERA, he's sitting at 1.59 ERA with 5 strikeouts. He did pitch 6 innings of no-hit ball, but he did walk 5 against the Tigers on April 1st. And then against the Reds, he allowed 2 runs on 10 hits and only walked 1 in 5 1/3 innings on last Friday. So he's had a couple different starts, different ways where he's been hit around a little bit. I mean, hit a little bit when he doesn't walk people, but then he also didn't allow a hit for 6 innings, but did have 5 base runners via walk. So got a win in both of those. That game will be on MLB Network on Thursday. In Chicago as they wrap up that series against the Pirates and for the Cubs, and then that's pretty much it. Looking around the league, we're gonna have a couple cool series coming up. We're gonna have the Cardinals and the Cardinals and the Reds coming up again. Another NL Central as we have a lot of these division games going on here in the beginning of the season. It's the Major League Baseball like to kick off their season with some division rivalries. Obviously, we saw the Giants and Dodgers have already played. Well, they had I think they had 7 games scheduled in the first week and a half, but they only got 6 of them in because of the rain out last week. But they'll play 4 at the end of the month. April 28th is a doubleheader for the Giants and the Dodgers. And then we also have the Red Sox Yankees going on right now. We have the Cardinals playing the Brewers, Phillies Cubs. I mean, all these games are pretty much in division except for a couple of them. These series that we're going to have Colorado against Washington come up. That's a cool little series there. I thought the Rockies would have a little better start to the season. They were sitting at 5-7. They were my sleeper team coming into that second wild card, as they did last year, get that second wild card and play the Diamondbacks. So it's going to be interesting, as we talked about before. There's probably about 4 or 5 teams. We'll see how the Giants fare as everybody comes back off the DL now with Cueto going on the DL, but he'll probably be back within the 10 days that is allotted for. And then Samardzija and Bumgarner making their way back as well. But with the Giants, the Brewers, I mean, you could throw the Cardinals, maybe, and then the Rockies and Diamondbacks all fighting for those 2 wildcard spots. And then obviously you can't just give the Cubs and the Cubs, Nationals, and Dodgers that division and win it again, because you got the Mets in there as well, fighting for those wild cards. So those are really those top teams in the NL looking to fight for those. I mean, now we have 5 playoff spots, obviously, and 2 of them you're going to play that in that 1-game playoff, which is just awesome. And I love seeing baseball. The fact that they've added that now, and it's better and better every year. We have had it for I think 4 or 5 seasons now, and it's just still a great addition. Or at least 4 or 5 seasons now, because the Giants played in one in 2012 and then also in 2014. So I know it's been about 6 or 7 years they've had this 1-game wild card, but the second wild card just adds so much. It keeps the fan base in the loop for, I mean, a whole other fan base, or 3 or 4 in the loop for, I mean, the whole last month of the season, and that's why we have a lot of these games. To cap the season, to start the season and end the season, we have a lot of these division games that MLB likes to do. So, to keep our attention, keep everybody's attention, because baseball loves your attention. They want to make you watch those games, and they want to make it as fast as possible. So you see now we have a pitch count. A mound visit limit. We're timing in between games. In between innings. We're not allowed. Batters aren't really allowed to leave the batter's box nearly as much anymore. In between pitches, as we're trying to make this game much more watchable and much more expedient for the younger audience and for pretty much for everybody. I mean, who doesn't like watching a 3-hour baseball game? I know I did yesterday, watching pretty much first pitch to last pitch of my undisclosed favorite team's game yesterday. So that'll wrap it up for this episode of the GSMC Baseball Podcast. We've talked to Cubs, we've talked to Yankees and Red Sox, we talked about different managers and how they're going to be faring throughout the rest of the season. Maybe they're going to get fired, maybe they're not going to get fired. We talked about some of the matchups I like coming up for the rest of the season. The rest of this week, in the series this week with the Cubs Pirates we got going on right now. We got Giants, Diamondbacks, and then obviously the big one. We got the rivalry, the Yankees and the Red Sox. We'll see if the Yankees can bounce back after that demolishment they took last night at Fenway Park. So until Friday, everyone have a good time and watch some baseball.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.